is Histories and Mysteries Uncovered. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Jessica. And on this week's episode, Ashley is going to be talking about Tonya Harding. How she beat up that little Miss Kerrigan. And and I will be talking about the Mary Celeste, which is a ship.
Ooh.
It's a big old mystery.
Oh, I'm very excited. Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, before we get started, join our Patreon. It's $3, and you get a monthly bonus episode and a sticker from us. So head on over to patreon.com and join us, won't you?
And before you're like, well, why would I just go over there to listen to the same old shit? Well, it's not the same old shit. It's different shit. And it is really fun. We do like Am I the Asshole? And some other random shit. And it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's very chaotic.
Very chaotic. But we have a close-knit group over there and we love them all. And come join the love.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. Just thought I'd plug that there. Also,
Perfect.
if you're wondering, Tonya Harding, that's a weird topic, you know, out of nowhere, random, that happened back in the 90s. Why are you covering it? Well, on Tuesday of the week that this comes out, if you head on over to the podcast One Dry Kiss, you will hear me and Jessica going over I, Tonya, the movie with the ladies of One Dry Kiss.
It was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun. They are so funny and so awesome. And their whole podcast is they go over different movies, and they did I, Tonya with us. And so we give a recap and then kind of our opinions on it as we go. So you can hear it this week, the true story, and then you can listen to One Dry Kiss, which goes over the movie and see the similarities and differences.
Yeah. It was a really good time. They're super sweet. Very nice ladies. Known each other a very long time, like since before I was born.
Known each other forever.
Yeah. You can hear me calling them all old over there too.
Oh, Jessica. Jessica will be murdered by an old lady one day.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to hop into it because this is long. I got my sources from everywhere you can think of. Oprah Magazine, Variety, All That's Interesting, Detroit Free Press, Vault, Washington Post, Biography, ABC News, CBS News, all the NBC News, all the three-letter newses, everywhere. So, Tonya Harding, we've all heard of her. We all remember her. Some of us remember her as the bad guy, but what do we really know about her, and how accurate was the Margot Robbie movie I, Tonya? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Jessica, your turn. Just kidding. So I wrote that in there because I thought it was very funny. So Tonya was born in East Portland, Oregon on November 12th, 1970, to the infamous Lavanya Golden.
Is that like just after your birthday?
Before by 16 years, thank you.
No, but I mean like the day.
Oh, mine's the 15th and hers was the 12th.
Oh, just kidding.
So dealing with another Scorpio, Jess.
Them damn Scorpios. Invading my freaking life.
And her dad was Al Gordon Harding. Lavanya was a waitress, and Al worked odd jobs here and there. Apparently, he had poor health, so he couldn't really hold down a full-time job. And they lived well below poverty level. To help with costs, they live in a trailer that was parked in Al's parents' driveway for a time, and Al would hunt and fish to provide food for the family. Tonya said she had a very troubled relationship with her mother, and that she was both mentally and physically abused by her. She said that she would drink all day long and began beating Tonya, dragging her off the rink, and in one confirmed story, hitting her with a hairbrush. And while Lavanya admits to hitting her the one time at the rink with the hairbrush, she said she's not abusive and she did her best. There was a witness to Tonya being hit in the rink with the hairbrush, so she kind of had to admit to that. But she said that her mother would regularly call her ugly and fat. And as much as we hate to admit it, society cares about looks. And if you're if the person that you're supposed to trust the most in the world is constantly telling you how ugly and fat you are, you're going to think you're ugly and fat, and it's going to ruin your self-esteem.
Which is just so awful. Like,
Yeah.
you have children and you're supposed to love and care for them and build them up.
Yeah.
I don't understand the people that just have children and then treat them like shit.
I know. I know. Well, and if it says anything about Lavanya, Al was her fifth marriage. So,
That's insane.
yeah.
I mean, what does it say for the guys that are marrying her?
True. Tonya even claims that once her and her mom were in a fight and her mom lost control and threw a steak knife at her, which you could see in the movie. But Lavanya denies that this ever happened. So I will preface to say that this story is a lot of he said, she said. Depending on who you talk to, stories differ. So I've tried to give both sides in most of this stuff, but Tonya also said that her mom would drink a lot. She said she would have half a thermos of brandy and half of coffee at like 4:30 a.m. And then by 8 a.m., she would drive Tonya to school. Tonya to school.
I was gonna say, like, that doesn't sound right.
Tonya. In my defense, she spells it Tonya. So if you just are like reading it, Tonya. Lavanya said that she was just using brandy flavoring in her coffee because she liked the taste. And she said, "You can't get drunk on flavoring. Sorry to disappoint you."
Was that even a thing back then?
Apparently it was, because there's a witness to this that we'll talk about in a second that talks about the brandy. Now, Tanya's childhood friend. So someone said childhood friend. Now let me say, she met Tonya when Tonya was 15 and Sandra was a senior at Yale University. So I wouldn't really call that a childhood friend, but
Maybe because it was Tanya's childhood.
maybe, maybe.
But I wouldn't consider 15 childhood.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. So this Sandra Luckout did an interview with People magazine back in 2018 talking about Lavanya and what Tonya says about her. When Tonya was, and how they met was that when Tonya was 15, Sandra filmed a documentary, and that was one of her projects for college. She filmed a documentary on Tonya because at this point, Tonya was a rather accomplished figure skater. So she wanted to film a documentary on her, and she called it Sharp Edges. And it was released in 1986. You can actually go and watch it. I think it's on YouTube, maybe. So she feels like she knows the family rather well. She said, "In some ways, I have to say she was no more cruel than a lot of skating mothers at the ice arena. She just did it with a lot more honesty. Did Mrs. Harding yell at Tonya to get back on the ice? Yes, but so did every other mother, also pushing their child because of the expense. It was one of those things where families were making huge sacrifices to pay for ice skating, and Mrs. Harding in particular. It was much more difficult for her to pay the ice time than anyone else. And to be honest, Tonya got a lot of help from a variety of people, and Mrs. Harding was always grateful." She goes on to say, "There were incidents that everybody saw that were egregious. I was in the bathroom stall when I saw through a crack in the bathroom stall that she was beating her with a hairbrush. I went and told adults that I was going to report it to child authorities. And she was told that if she did, it would ruin Tanya's skating career because she would be taken away from her family and she would no longer be able to skate." That's the one incident I did see.
And honestly, if you think about it, if you're recording somebody for a documentary, they are going to be on their best behavior.
Exactly.
They are not going to show you that they're abusing their child
Yeah,
out in the open, hence why they go into the bathroom.
exactly. And if you're in the bathroom beating your child with a hairbrush, this is not the first time you've ever hit your kid.
No, exactly.
Yeah. She also says about the coffee, "I remember her having brandy flavoring, and I remember it not having any alcohol in it. I do remember one time that Mrs. Harding offered my mother some coffee from her thermos. My mother was allergic to alcohol, and she had several sips of coffee with Mrs. Harding that had brandy flavoring in it, and she was fine." Finally, she said, I really hope that Allison Janney wins an Academy Award, but it's for a fictional role that she played. And I don't want to have the appearance that I'm blind to the flaws of Mrs. Harding because I'm not, but I'm also not blind to a huge amount of humanity that was there. Now, I think to me, obviously in I, Tonya, they portrayed her as just a heartless human, but I'm sure she wasn't 24/7 like that. I'm sure sometimes she had humanity. I mean, she was a human. But to say that because you didn't see anything, nothing was happening. Mm.
Well, and the thing is obviously I can only speak to what I saw in the movie,
Mm.
which we know may or may not be fiction. So, but you can see where Tonya has some hope in her mom.
Yeah.
Hope that she's gonna see this like kind person that maybe she has shown to her
Yeah.
like time and time again, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because even, I mean, any abusive relationship, they're not abusive 24/7.
no,
So a reviewer for Variety magazine who watched I, Tonya and decided to watch Sharp Edge said that Lavanya was very much like how she was portrayed in I, Tonya, and went on to say that Dorothy Hamill, who is mentioned several times as an obvious role model for Tanya. So, do you know who Dorothy Hamill is, Jessica?
no, ma'am.
Okay. I was really big into ice skating. So, she was a really big ice skater as well. And they said that Dorothy Hamill spent $35,000 a year when she was training in the mid 70s. That's equivalent to $150,000 a year today. Tonya, when she was just 5, was talented enough to win a pair of sponsors who saw her potential, but they cut out after witnessing Lavana's behavior at competitions, specifically when they saw her beating Tonya with a hairbrush.
That's rough.
Yeah, so she had sponsors that left because of Lavania's attitude.
That's really unfortunate
Yeah.
that they and oh, it's just so frustrating because this whole thing is just totally rigged
Yeah.
and they value personality, appearance, and personal life more than the actual skating.
Mm-hmm.
And that part just pisses me
Oh, yeah,
off because
absolutely.
this girl was obviously very talented and she just didn't have the opportunities the other girls had because she didn't come from money.
Yeah.
Like it's, oh, that
Mm-hmm.
bugs me.
Well, and I think this next quote from Lavanya kind of shows what kind of person she is. So, she, in one of the interviews for the documentary Sharp Edges, she said, the bigger the you can't do it, the better, and the best she'll do it. And then Sandra asks, what if you didn't challenge her with obstacles? Lavanya replies, she'd be nothing, absolutely nothing. So, right there, that shows you what kind of a mother she is.
Well, and I feel like she values Tanya more as property rather than a daughter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. But she denies the abuse. She says she never abused Tonya. And Tonya said there wasn't a day that went by that she wasn't hit. We may never know the truth, but I will say that Lavanya has more of a reason to lie, in my opinion, than Tonya. But
I feel like they both have equal opportunity and equal reason to lie,
you think?
considering, well, considering what happened, right? So,
Yeah, I guess if she wanted to have like a feel sorry for me type of lie.
yeah. Oh,
I
exactly. And
feel like
make
it's
make it look like she was not saying that she wasn't,
mm,
but her like she could be playing on that whole victim thing
yeah. Yeah.
and getting her out of the situation later on in life.
I kind of feel like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
She probably was abused. And just by what Lavanya says about her in these interviews, like she definitely was emotionally abused. She
Oh,
probably was physically
absolutely.
abused.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from the alleged abuse Tonya suffered at her mom's hand, Tonya has also said that she was a victim of rape and molestation by her half brother, Chris. She said that he molested her several times throughout her childhood. And finally, in 1986, after he had been sexually harassing and terrorized her, she called the police and he was arrested and he spent some time in prison.
So that part was downplayed a lot in the movie.
100%. I was just about to say that in the
Yeah.
movie, they downplayed it a lot because that final thing where she called the police, he came in and was like groping her, and she attacked him with her curling iron and ran out the door or ran upstairs and locked herself in a room. He beat the door down trying to get to her, and she ran out and he was chasing her. And she had called the cops while she was locked in that room, and then he was chasing her, like trying to get her before the cops got there. Like it was
Like
intense.
that happened in real life.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I
yeah.
was gonna say I do not remember that from the movie.
No, that's what happened in real life, and they definitely downplayed it in the movie.
Okay.
Her parents obviously didn't believe her because I would be shocked if Lavanya did believe her and support her in a nice way. And they told her not to press charges. Chris was eventually killed in an unsolved hit and run accident in 1988. And during an interview Tonya gave in 1994, she said that Chris was the only person she ever hated and that he was unworthy of forgiveness. Here's another quote from Lavanya that's going to tell you straight up how she is. She admitted that, quote, she wouldn't put it past Chris to try and get a kiss. But at the same time, her daughter has a tendency to tell tall tales. And then she slapped Tonya across the face and accused her of lying.
What?
Yeah.
That's a lovely mother.
Yes. When Tonya was a sophomore, she dropped out of school to focus more on skating. She did eventually go back and get her GED, but at the age of 15, basically skating was her life. And at that time, her life forever changed, and not in a good way, when she met her.
Jeff Galooly.
Yep. And I use a different last name for him every single time, and it made me giggle. So this first one I said, she met her future husband, Jeff GoDaddy. And we'll get into him. But when Tonya was 16, her parents divorced, which is very different from the movie because they show her as a young McKenna Grace crying in the street. But she was actually
Yeah.
16 when they
That part was
divorced.
very sad.
Yeah.
And then at the time she was 15, she was played by Margot Robbie, and she looked like she was in her 30s.
Yes.
I was very confused by the timeline of this movie.
But yeah, so she was actually 16 when her dad left. And he did continue to be in her life, unlike what was shown in the movie. After he left, they kind of never talked about him again in the movie. But Tonya said they talked every day and he came to all of her competitions. So he still was in her life.
Very different than the movie.
Yeah. And she said during the scandal, when everybody in the world was against me, my dad was still in my corner no matter what. But he did unfortunately pass away in 2009. So anyway, back to Jeff Goofbody. According to Tonya and claims made by Tonya herself, Jeff was also abusive. She also made claims that he raped her with two other accomplices held by holding a gun to her head, and told her to stick to the story when speaking to the FBI about the Nancy Kerrigan incident. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. But Jeff claims that Tonya actually abused him. But at the age of 18 in 1989, Tonya's mom, along with her sixth husband, kicked Tonya out of the house, and her and Jeff Goodbody moved in together. They had been together about 3 years at this point, and 1 year later, in 1990, they got married, partly because Tonya wanted to get on his health insurance, which totally get. And this next quote is disgusting. It's from her mom. And she says, I tried to talk them out of getting married. I knew Jeff had a violent streak. Once, when Tonya was living with me and my new husband, he tried to break down the door because he thought she had gone out with another boy. It turns out it was just her brother she'd been with. And I just think that that is not the quote that I was talking about that's disgusting, but that is also a quote.
It's like, I was waiting for the shoe to drop.
Nope, that was it. There's a different quote in here that I think is where that meant to go, the disgusting part. But
Okay.
yes, her mom said that she did try and talk her out of being with Jeff. But at this point in her career, Tonya was killing it. She placed second in Skate America in 1986, first in Prize of Moscow News, which I guess is a competition in Russia, in 1988, third at the U.S. Championship that same year, first in Skate America again in 1989, 1990, and first in Nations Cup that same year. She got second in the World Championship and NHK Trophy, and first that same year in the US Championships. So she's killing it.
Holy shit. Go you, Tonya.
Yeah. But as we know, Tonya did struggle her whole career getting the judges to take her seriously. She wasn't rich, perfect princess, and they wanted a wholesome look for their champion, which Tonya was not. So, had she been given a fair chance, she probably got in first place everywhere. Because I mean, if she could get she could place with all that shit on her shoulders, I mean, who knows? So, anywho, after a tumultuous relationship, a year after they were married in 1991, Tonya filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. She also filed a restraining order to keep Jeff away from her apartment and skating rink, saying that he wrenched my arm and wrist and he pulled my hair and shoved me. She also said, I recently found out he bought a shotgun and I'm scared for my safety. There was even a story that while separated, Jeff came to Tanya's apartment, took her purse to get her to talk to him, and when she tried to get it back, things went south. She left the apartment and he chased her back in, and then he pulled a gun on her and him. She walked out again. He shot the gun, which hit the asphalt and caused some of the asphalt to come up and hit her in the face, which we saw in the movie. So then he pushed her into the car and took off. According to Tonya, police tried to pull him over, and it ended up in a small car chase where police had to actually box him in. Tonya said they took his guns and let him go. Jeff denies that this ever happened. I can see it though, because back in the 80s, police really didn't care about domestic violence. So I can see it happening. I can also see it being an exaggeration. I don't know.
Yeah, but weren't there like any witnesses to this?
I mean, the cop, right? But if they just let him go, they wouldn't have filed a report or anything.
No, I meant like when Jeff shot the gun,
Oh, yeah. You'd think that they'd,
right?
yeah.
Hmm.
But I guess if there weren't any files charged, who would be talking to them? Who would go back and confirm that they saw anything, you know?
I guess so.
So,
Wishful thinking.
yes. So during their separation, after she filed the restraining order, friends said that Tonya seemed happier and she even got engaged to another man. But according to an article by the New York Times, he ended their engagement after he saw Tonya being disrespectful to other people and she gave her phone number out to another man. So,
Good for him.
yeah. But then she did get back together with Jeff. She said, I know it seemed like I was happy, but something was missing. And now I know what it was. Jeff and I love each other more than ever. We're going to get a counselor and work it out. I know he's changed. I see it in his eyes and I believe in him, which unfortunately makes sense. I mean, she met him when she was 15. She grew up with him basically. And he was her savior that saved her from her mom.
I guess. And honestly, this is why it's like clearly her mom was pretty abusive because she was used to it.
Yeah.
That's why it was kind of second nature with Jeff,
Yep. That's how
right?
people showed her they loved her in her
Yeah.
eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also a random thing that I read, and it really has nothing to do with anything, but I put it in here. In 1992, Tonya got into a roadside spat with another driver in Portland, Oregon. And the first officer who arrived on the scene said that Harding had a baseball bat and had broken the other driver's glasses. But everybody said they were sorry and the whole thing was dropped and they all went on their way.
I can see that.
Yeah. Tanya's a tough bitch.
Oh yeah. She has a temper.
Yes. But as I'm sure we all know, things with Jeff did not change, and they did officially get divorced in 1993. But then they tried to get back together again in 1994, and this is when everything goes downhill. But before all of that happened, Tonya was in the prime of her career. Her and Nancy were competing for a spot on the 1994 Olympics in Norway. And the one thing that the movie doesn't really touch on, which makes the motive for this make so much more sense, is that if you're a champion skater in the Olympics, you're probably going to make more than $1 million in endorsements and appearance fees, which adjusted for inflation is more than $2 million in today's money.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so that makes sense why those guys would be like, "Hey, we need to get her out and get Tonya in here so we can get that money," right? It makes the motive make all the more sense to me.
Totally.
So in the movie, I, Tonya, they make it out that Jeff and Tonya thought that they were sending threatening letters to Nancy, and that was it. According to the Detroit Free Press, Jeff started planning the what all the newspapers called whack heard around the world with his buddies back in December of 1993. The article says that Jeff offered three hitmen, Derek Smith, Shane Stant, and Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckert, $6,500 each. And at one point, they thought about creating a car crash to maim Kerrigan or hiring a sniper to just kill her. But they decided to hit her knee instead. Thank God they didn't go with these other crazy things.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah. They then decided that Shane Stant would be the one to hit Nancy and Derek would be the getaway driver. So on January 6th, they made their move. After Nancy finished up her practice routine, came off the ice, and the camera stopped filming, Shane took a telescopic baton. I think that's just the one that, like, kind of like out.
Yeah, you just like whip it and it opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he hit her in the leg before running off. But the idiot was so nervous, he hit her in the lower thigh instead of her knee, which would presumably do much more damage and keep her out of the Olympics had he hit her in the knee. But it still kind of worked. Nancy had to withdraw from the U.S. Championship and the Winter Olympics, but she did recover in time to go back to the Olympics after all. So their plan failed. Losers. Anyway, after he hit her with the baton, he tried to escape out a locked door and decided the best thing to do would be to break the glass with his head and run.
This happened in real life?
Yes, ma'am.
What
He
an
really did that.
idiot.
He also really tackled that random man on the street who got in his way.
Oh, no.
Yes.
No, that's hilarious. That was so funny in the movie.
Oh
He
my
just
gosh.
fucking
Ridiculous.
barrels this guy over, like, go around.
And in an effort not to draw attention to them, Shane Stant moved his car every 30 minutes. So in the movie, it said 15. It was actually every 30, but he did do that.
At the wrong place.
No, at the right, but he just kept moving it every 30 minutes to, like, not be suspicious.
Oh, because in the movie it said they were in the wrong place.
Gotcha. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
they
doing that.
Yeah. So with this sophisticated team of criminals, it didn't take police long to figure out the masterminds behind all of this. But how much did Tonya know about the attack? And that's kind of the question that has forever loomed over her. And at first, she said none. And she said that this is where she was raped by Jeff and the two other men at gunpoint. She said that they took her out, Jeff raped her, and the two other men had her at gunpoint saying that she better not talk to the FBI about anything. In court, all of the men except Jeff took a plea deal, and both Sean and Jeff said that Tonya knew of the plot. Sean said that Tonya told him, "You need to stop screwing around with this and get it done," and said that Jeff told him he would give him $10,000 if he did the attack immediately. Tonya denies knowing anything about the attacks, but she said she did hear them talking about stuff. She said she heard, "Well, maybe we should take somebody out so we can make sure she gets on the team." And she said to them, "What the hell are you talking about? I can skate." She said she didn't put two and two together until a few days after the attack. But Jeff did testify to the FBI that Tonya knew about the attack and said it was a good idea.
And I kind of feel like if everybody is saying the same thing, that, there's some truth in there.
Well, and my thought kind of is, what would be the point of saying she knew about it? It's not going to get them off in any way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Sean told Jeff that it would be a good idea to have some personal information on Kerrigan before this happened, like a photograph, her address, the location of the rink. And according to Jeff's FBI statement, he passed the request on to Tonya and suggested that she call a journalist that she knew, Vera Marano, who lived in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Tonya, Jeff said, agreed to do so, saying she would tell Morano that she and Jeff had a bet regarding where Nancy lived and that Vera could settle the bet. Tonya also mentioned a poster of Nancy, Christy Yamaguchi, and Tonya that she said that they needed to have Nancy sign. So then the FBI was like, okay, well, this would prove that Tonya knew something about it. So they went to Vera, who said that on December 26th, Tonya did indeed call her, saying she needed to settle a bet. And she asked her if she could find out where Nancy trained and if Nancy owned any property on Cape Cod. Vera told Tonya she would try to get that information and would get back to her. Then Vera did this by calling a friend in Massachusetts, Dorothy Baker, a member of the U.S. Figure Skating Association. Baker told Vera that Nancy trained at the Tony Kent Arena on Cape Cod, but she would not provide any information about Nancy's place of residence. So Vera then called Tonya back and left information on her answering machine. So that part of what Jeff said was true. However, in the movie, they make it seem like she just wanted that information so that they could send Nancy threatening letters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we know that she did indeed call to get that information about Nancy.
Yeah.
What she thought she was getting it for is the question.
Up in the air.
Jeff also told the FBI that when he and Tonya listened to the tape, it sounded as though Vera said that Nancy trained at the Toby Can Arena. So Tonya had to call her back on December 27th and ask her to spell it out. And that's where they got the Tony Kent Arena. After hanging up, Tonya told him that Tara couldn't find out where Nancy lived. So they started looking for a picture of Nancy, and Jeff found a brochure containing a photo of Christy Yamaguchi, Tonya, and Nancy. He also told the FBI that he remembered exactly where he and Tonya were at the moment driving southbound on Interstate 205 across from Public Storage, a large gray facility with a bright orange door just a mile off from Clackamas Town Center Ice Ring, where Tonya trained.
Tonya or Nancy?
Tonya.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jeff says he told Tonya they needed to get some more information for Sean's two friends, another picture if possible, and Nancy's skating times. They decided Tonya would make the calls in case the person at Tony Kent Arena asked any technical questions. Tonya would say that she had a daughter who was a big fan of Nancy's and that they wanted to see her skate and maybe get an autograph. Jeff says that Tonya made these 3 calls. The first number she called was a pre-recorded message giving the public skating hours at Tony Kent Arena, at the end of which was another number that was given for further information. So Tonya dialed the second number, asked for the patch and freestyle times. She wrote down the times and asked if Nancy skated then. According to Jeff, after she hung up, Tonya told Jeff, "The stupid bitch gave it to me." The woman at the Tony Kent Arena had volunteered that Nancy's private ice time was noon to 3. Jeff asked Tonya if she'd gotten an address of the arena, and she told him she'd forgotten. So Tonya had called the arena a third time to write down the address. Tonya and Jeff then searched for another picture of Kerrigan and found 2. One was the World Team Handbook, and one was the Olympian magazine. And Jeff said he was going to take the entire magazine to Sean until Tonya pointed out that their name and address were on the mailing label. So they tore off the cover and threw it in the trash. So I think all these details are important because it's very detailed if it's a lie.
But I feel like the more details, the more of a lie it is.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just feel like there's a lot of plot holes, right? Like, who the hell's not going to recognize Tonya Harding if she walks into a skating arena?
Well, she called. They were phone calls.
for like pretending that I thought the one of the plans was that she was gonna bring her kid, like pretend that she had like kids, or
The
is that just over the phone?
over the phone. That's why she was saying she was gonna. That's why
Oh,
they wanted to know when
oh,
Nancy's
sorry,
time
I missed
was.
that. I
Yeah, no,
thought that
no,
one of the plans that she would like
no. Yeah, that
waltz
would be
into this
super obvious.
arena
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh, like I
Oh,
have something
hey.
here." Sorry,
No, no, no. You're fine.
sorry. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there was. But I do think that any of that could be also the excuse of she thought they were sending them threatening letters only.
Yeah, but I feel like to the extent,
Yeah.
because why would you need to know? But at the same time, why would you need to know her specific ice time if all you were doing was sending a letter?
Well, so it would get to her though, right? Because if they're sending it to the arena because they can't get her home address,
Yeah,
they'd
but
have to make sure
you can send it to the arena, and
they
whenever the
would
fuck
give it
she
to her.
arrives,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
would give it to her. Why do you need the exact time frame if you're not going to be
Yeah.
doing something beyond a letter after that,
Yeah. That's a good point.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can hand a letter to somebody, they're not going to open it if it's not addressed to them, or at least they shouldn't. So
And
they're
then
not
she
going
should
to
still get
alert
it.
her. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Well, Tonya does deny all of this. And even through her denials, the media crucified her. I mean, her career was over. They crucified her. And I got this article that was written in 2014. So this was 10 years after the incident happened. I read this and I was like, oh my gosh. It's, the New York Post 2014 said, whatever the case, it's interesting to hear the women 20 years later, Nancy, now a mother of two, still in elegant skating shape, Tonya, puffy, time worn, and hard edged, recall the events leading up to and following that January 1994 day in Detroit. Isn't that like, it's so awful?
Yeah, they really don't like Tanya in any capacity.
No, no. So Jeff did negotiate a plea agreement eventually in exchange for testimony against everyone else. He got 2 years in prison. He pled guilty to racketeering, and the other two guys pled guilty to conspiracy to commit second-degree assault. Sean, which I didn't go into him because he's a whole nother thing you could do. He felt like he was some like espionage, international spy thing or whatever. But he did die in 2007 from natural causes. Tonya ended up pleading guilty to conspiracy to hinder prosecution, which is a Class C felony. And she did this so that she didn't have to do jail time because the maximum for that sentence was 5 years of jail, and she didn't want to do jail time. And this also said that she could not be prosecuted any further. She admitted to knowing of the assault plot after the fact and covering it up and lying to the FBI. Now, this is a little different than the movie. So, in real life, from this case, she got 3 years probation, a $100,000 fine, 500 hours of community service, $10,000 in legal expenses. She had to undergo a psychiatric exam and give $50,000 to the Special Olympics, which is kind of on track with what the movie said. However, the movie also said that she was removed from skating completely, which is true, but the judge didn't do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
So
who made that decision?
the board of skaters or whatever. So this is weird to me too because they had this case, and then on March 21st, 1994, a Portland grand jury issued an indictment stating that there was evidence Harding participated in the attack plot. The indictment said that after 2 months of investigation, witness testimonies from Diane Rawlinson, Tonya's choreographer Erica Bacchus, freelance figure skating writer Vera Morano, and Sean's college instructor and classmates. Uh, the indictment stated that there was evidence that Tonya fraudulently used USFSA, which is United States something skating association, providing skating money to finance the assault. It also read that Tonya, Jeff, Eckerd, Smith, and Stant agreed to knowingly cause physical injury by means of a dangerous weapon. The grand jury foreman said that the evidence implied Harding as involvement from the beginning or being very close to the incident. She was not charged in the indictment due to the terms of her plea that said she could not be prosecuted further. So then a second disciplinary panel met with the USFSA. So I think it's the United States Federation of Skating. I don't know, but it's the skating board. And they said, by a preponderance of the evidence, the panel did conclude that Tonya had prior knowledge and was involved prior to the incident. This is based on civil standards, not criminal standards, bank records, phone records, the way they came together to establish a case. The panel decided that pertinent FBI reports, court documents, and Harding's March 16th plea agreement presented, quote, a clear disregard for fairness, good sportsmanship, and ethical behavior. Tonya did not attend or participate in the 2-day hearing, and that she had not decided on an appeal. But Tonya was stripped of her 1994 U.S. Championship title and banned for life from participating in USFSA events as either a skater or a coach. So it was actually the skating
Holy
association that banned
shit.
her. Yeah.
That's crazy. I feel like it is so dramatic, the punishment versus what happened, you know? I understand the theory of what they wanted to happen,
Yeah.
but it's not what happened. I
Well,
feel
and
like
I
it was so
think,
much milder.
yeah, yeah. And I think that Tonya took the brunt of it, even though she wasn't the one that did it. But
Well, exactly. And the thing, even in the movie, right? The
yeah,
guys planned this, this, and this. She may have had a part in this, but not this, this, this. And she gets the shit loaded on her.
yeah. In the movie, they make it out for her to be much more innocent than I think she was. Because both this panel, which I feel like they're probably pretty biased because they are the skating association, which hated her the whole time.
Uh-huh. And they're so friggin' judgy.
Yeah. But then also the Portland grand jury said that they believe after the investigation and everything that she did know about this.
I feel like, I don't know. I am so torn.
I know. I know. But yeah, in the movie, they make her seem much more innocent than I think she probably was.
But it's so hard because people were so biased against her,
Yeah.
right? So you're going, and people got swept up in the media so much more
Oh,
back then.
yes.
And I feel like they're going to be swayed one way over the other just because of what's been flooding into their ears,
Could be. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it is hard
Yeah.
because, yes, it makes sense. She had motive, she
Mm-hmm.
had means, she had all of those things. But at the same time, she was also a very hard worker. She wanted to go places.
Yeah.
All she wanted was to be loved and accepted. So
Mm-hmm.
it also just doesn't make sense, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only thing that kind of rumbles around in my head is that this is her second time trying to get to the Olympics, right? So the first time she went to the Olympics, I think she got like, what was it, fourth or eighth or something like that. And I think she knew that this was probably her last chance. So maybe she was a little desperate too. I don't know.
That's true. It's true. I
But yeah,
guess,
I
yeah.
think I could believe it either way. I really could. But nobody's really ever going to know except for Tonya. And she did after this become a boxer for a little bit because she didn't all she ever did was skate. She didn't really have anything to fall back on. And she did okay with that. She wasn't a boxer for long. She ended up on some reality shows. I think she did Dancing with the Stars. She did Celebrity Worst Cooks or something and won that. And now she is married with one son. And according to Tanya at the end, she wants everybody to know that she is a good mom.
The end.
Yeah. So I do have a couple of fact checked things that they said, like fact check. This is from Vulture magazine.
Okay.
I, Tonya versus real life. And some of them I talked about in my story, so I'm going to skip that. But um, did Lavanya make Harding get her class pictures taken in her skating costume? Yes, that is true.
To save money on pictures for those of you that have not watched the movie.
Yes. Did a young Tonya Harding wear a homemade rabbit fur coat? Unverified. We're unsure if that's true or not.
I mean,
Yeah. Did Sean Eckert really claim to be a counterterrorism expert? Yes, he did.
then in a little interview.
Yep, he did an interview with Diane Sawyer in 1994, explaining to viewers that Diane Sawyer said Eckert has a resume that makes him out to be a cross between James Bond and Oliver North. And before the attack on Nancy, he reportedly bragged about dangerous exploits, including the fact that he had hitmen. So Sawyer asked Sean if he was the one who was power mad and megalomaniac, and if he actually manufactured the entire scheme to fulfill a deranged fantasy. And he said, my training and education has been in the areas of counterespionage and counterterrorism. I've done extensive research in the areas of terrorism, trends, and profiles. I've been quoted as an expert in terrorism trends and profiles. So he attributes that
Wow.
quote to a travel magazine a couple of years ago during the Gulf War, where it says Sawyer's. He says that he got started in his trade at the age of 17.
But you live at home with your parents.
Yes. And also, by the way, apparently he could not keep his mouth shut about what they did to Nancy. And that's another way the police found them pretty quickly. He was
Oh,
telling everybody and everybody about it.
yeah. And it was shown like that in the movies too. He told everyone everything. He was a bragger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did Tonya tell a judge to suck my dick after the judge criticized her outfit? No.
Oh,
But she said she wished she had said it.
yeah.
She
Fair.
did tell the judge that unless they could come up with $5,000 to buy her a new costume, stay out of her face. Oh, did Lavanya pay a heckler to harass Harding before a competitive skate? That's also unverified. And she did not dramatically fire her coach like you see Diana in the movie. So that wasn't true. And she did Harding and Kerrigan room together on tour and get wasted in hotels. It doesn't seem like it. Harding does talk in the Tonya tapes about occasionally bunking with Nancy on the road, but only mentions activities like shopping or eating or watching TV together. So that is the I, Tonya story.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tune in next, or I think Tuesday, like I said, to listen to One Dry Kisses with us in it about I, Tonya.
It's just one dry kiss.
Yes, One Dry Kiss. What did I say?
Kisses.
Oh, that's weird. One Dry Kisses? That's weird.
That's weird. Hence the correction.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. People will be out there looking for One Dry Kisses.
Oh man. Yeah, it's interesting to see. It's hard, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not gonna find things out there from her being like, oh yeah, I lied about this.
Right, exactly. She's gonna take that to her grave if she did.
Absolutely. I'm really hoping that we're gonna get one of those deathbed confessions out of her.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Something
So
she
do
tells
you
her
think she
grandkids.
knew or not?
I'm always the person that's like yes and no.
Yeah.
Because I can see the pros for it, like sorry, the points for her knowing,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see the points pointing towards her not knowing, and then there's the knowing but not doing anything or not knowing, and it's complicated, and I'm not gonna figure it out.
Yeah. I hope she didn't know. I want to believe she didn't know, but
Yeah.
who knows?
And it's hard because of how they portray her in the movie, right? Just very
Yeah.
hard ass and
Like
mouthy and
but like awesome,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to believe she didn't know,
Yeah.
but
I, at most, I feel like she knew about the letters at the very least, but the other stuff,
yeah,
who
yeah. There
knows?
definitely was some kind of plot that she knew about. Whether or not she knew that they were going to attack her, I don't know.
Exactly.
Tell us your thoughts, guys. What do you think? Did she know? Let us know.
Yeah. So I'm going to be talking about a little bit of a ghost ship.
Ooh.
It is called the Mary
The berry.
Celeste. It was buried at sea, okay.
Okay.
The Mary Celeste. I used all this interesting Smithsonian Magazine and UCL website, whatever it is. And Google. I used Google.
Like the search engine to search?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was looking something up, and you know how the different web pages in Google just pop up, but you don't
Yeah.
actually go to the website because
Oh, yes.
it's a blurb.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I used part of the blurb.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Google.
Google.
The Canadian ship Die Gracia saw what appeared to be an abandoned ship drifting over the Atlantic between Portugal and the Azores Islands on December 5th, 1872, while navigating through rough waters. It was the American brigantine Mary Celeste, which had sailed from New York over a month earlier.
Oh, that's not good.
No, everything was in perfect order as the Die Gracia crew boarded the Mary Celeste. Even the crew's clothing had been carefully stowed away.
Ew.
Why? Ew.
Oh, something's wrong.
However, there was not a single living person on board the ship, living or dead. Let's say that.
So no dead bodies. Got it.
No dead bodies, no live bodies, nobody.
Would you say no
Nobody.
bodies?
What?
He said no dead bodies, no live bodies, nobody. Would you say that?
Oh.
No bodies?
Yeah, you could. The crew's whereabouts could only be explained by a missing lifeboat and a disassembled pump in the hold. Those are two things you need to remember. Missing lifeboat and a disassembled pump in the hold.
Question, and maybe you'll get into this.
Okay.
Was one lifeboat enough to hold everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
There's 10 people.
Okay.
A merchant ship carrying denatured alcohol sailed from New York Harbor to Genoa, Italy. Well, it didn't sail there because it went off course, but it was on its way there to Genoa, Italy.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. And they left on November 7th, 1872. Under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs and his carefully chosen crew of 7 men, the Mary Celeste set off. Briggs's wife and 2-year-old daughter also accompanied them aboard the ship. Denatured alcohol, because I didn't know what it was.
I've heard the word, but I don't really know like what it is. I know I've used it in science, but
Exactly. So it refers to alcohol products contaminated with dangerous and or unpleasant tasting additives,
mm,
such as methanol, benzene, which you probably would have used in your
hmm.
classes, pyridine, castor oil, gasoline, isopropyl alcohol, and acetone.
Castor oil?
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder you're not supposed to drink that when you're pregnant. It's an old wives' tale.
And because of this, people aren't supposed to consume it. Before arriving in Azores, the ship and its crew had to battle violent storms and hazardous waters for 2 weeks. Captain Briggs wrote a journal entry detailing the difficult voyage, but oddly, it ended suddenly on November 25th, 1872, at 5 in the morning. The previous night, according to his records, the ship and her crew had encountered strong winds and choppy seas, but by the next morning they had managed to safely reach the island of Santa Maria, and all appeared well. Now, back to the Diagratia, finding the Mary Celeste set adrift at sea. After sending a boarding crew to look at the Mary Celeste, Captain David Morehouse discovered that the ship was in almost pristine condition. Everything appeared to basically be in order, with the exception of a few feet of water in the ship's bilge, which is the lowest place, and it's below the waterline.
Weird.
Yes. The crew's things were neatly packed away, and the ship was supplied with enough food and water to last them 6 months.
Super weird.
Yeah. Even the 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol was intact. Out of the 1,701 barrels in the hold, 9 of them were empty.
Oh,
Nevertheless, these empty barrels were noted to be made of a different wood than the other ones were, and apparently it was made out of red oak. And red oak is more porous, so leaks are more common with it.
okay.
So some of that denatured alcohol, which is very flammable,
Hmm.
could seep through, cause something, which we will talk about later.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. But there were some empty barrels. The only things that were not in order were a few charts scattered about below deck and the missing crew. So, Captain Briggs was an incredibly seasoned seaman, and it made absolutely no sense that he would just abandon his ship, especially with it being so well equipped and there not seeming to have anything wrong.
Yeah, it's not like they were taking on water or there was a fire or they ran out of food and water.
Yeah,
Super weird. Well, and I was gonna say maybe pirates, but then even then you'd have stuff gone.
exactly. And I'll
Yeah,
get into that too.
super weird. But also, you said semen.
I know. I had to. It was especially odd to Captain Morehouse, the captain of the Digratia, because he and Briggs were friends and had even dined together in New York before both captains left for their respective crews. And he even said what a good Captain Briggs was. Like, not like, I mean, yeah, good captain is this he's really good at his job,
Hmm.
essentially, right? So
Like he would go
he's
down with the ship type captain.
exactly like very experienced, very hands-on guy, very tough as nails. Like he's been doing this a long time. The Mary Celeste was towed to Gibraltar by Morehouse and his crew, who then proceeded to undertake an investigation that ultimately produced no definitive results. At this period, a number of theories started to emerge. Frederick Flood, an English inspector, was the first to make a hypothesis on the crew's absence. The investigator felt that Morehouse and Briggs, who we know are friends, might have devised a plot to deceive the insurance company and divide the proceeds from the eventual sale of the Mary Celeste. The abandoned ship did, in fact, now belong to Morehouse per the laws of the sea.
Interesting. So the only thing they would get out of that though was a new ship, right? Because nothing
No,
happened to the ship. So what insurance would they collect on it?
Well, the ship will sail. Oh, sorry. The ship will sell to another person.
Oh, yeah, okay. So they get the money from that then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Or, it goes back to the bank. I don't know how things were worked back then, but I know
Yeah.
there were a lot of shipping companies, right?
Hmm.
So if Briggs didn't come back with the ship that found the Mary Celeste is now in possession of it,
Okay.
and then they have to kind of, I guess, sell it back to the company.
Yeah. Okay.
I
That
don't
makes
know. I'm
sense.
I'm working out of my butt here,
Well,
so
it makes sense. Makes sense.
okay. The inspector then conjectured that Briggs had murdered his crew and taken up residence in the Digratia's cargo hold. Nonetheless, there were many flaws in this theory.
Yeah, if you murdered a whole crew, there would be some evidence. Like
Uh-huh.
one would fight back, or there'd be blood, or there'd be uh, something.
Exactly. Some of these holes, Briggs wouldn't have benefited from this plan because he actually owned property shares in the ship. And Briggs's wife and daughter were not taken into consideration by this idea. They were there, so where are his wife and daughter if they are not murdered on the ship?
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen it before, but for a man to murder his wife and daughter for some kind of like scheme, we've seen it before, but still.
There'd still be evidence.
Yeah.
After a while, the Digratia's crew was paid. Still, it comprised of a mere 1/6 of the Mary Celeste's whole worth. They only got 1/6.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
No. So $46,000 today is roughly $1,170,081.64.
So they got a million or they got a sixth of a million?
They got a sixth of a million,
Oh.
which is only $194,996.65.
I mean, I've seen people kill for less, but it's not a lot.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Back in the 1800s, that's a lot
Yeah.
of money, right? So
Yeah.
it seems that the authorities did not fully believe that they were innocent because, but why would you punish this dude just for being friends with somebody?
Yeah, I feel like, and obviously back then, the law was different, but that would not fly. Like, there's nothing. What?
Literally, you're friends with this guy, so clearly you guys made a pact. There's literally no evidence of any of this shit happening, but you're guilty and you get to be punished.
That's insane.
It's insane. Insanity. Although there were no reports of violence, some versions claimed that the crew had mutinied after becoming intoxicated from the ship's alcohol cargo. Others claimed that since no valuables were missing, this doesn't make any sense. The sentence says others claimed that since no valuables were missing, the ship must have been attacked by pirates, which makes no sense. I feel like that should be the opposite. Like nothing's missing, so they've not been attacked by
Yes,
pirates.
yes, that makes more sense that way.
Yeah, that makes zero sense. Oh my God. If novelist Arthur Conan Doyle hadn't written the book J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement, which tells the tale of an escaped slave who takes over a ship named the Mary Celeste in 1884, this mystery could have remained unsolved. But he brought it back to life. Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh.
Arthur Conan Doyle. The Arthur Conan Doyle. I don't know if he's a good guy or not, but it seemed cool.
I don't know anything about him except that, he
He
wrote
wrote Sherlock
stories.
Holmes.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah, I don't know if he was a good guy or not either.
but pretty freaking cool. Even Flood, That inspector revisited the case at this point, writing new notes about his previous interviews and kind of like scribbling in the margins of shit. I guess trying to figure this out still. Naturally, tales of sea monsters and much later explanations for natural water spouts and extraterrestrial abduction were linked to the missing crew.
If there was water spouts, wouldn't that have hurt the ship?
I feel like it's a little bit beyond what I could explain in this podcast. I don't think water spouts are kind of like a whale's water spout where the water just goes pitoo.
No, no, no. They're like tornadoes in the water.
Yeah. So I don't know. There was a little bit of water in the bilge. Like
Yeah, I feel like a water spout would do a lot more damage than that.
maybe, but who knows how big they were, right?
Yeah,
So maybe it was enough to freak them out
maybe.
and
And they
like the
left it
ship's
because of
going
that.
down,
Maybe.
right? So I personally believe the alien abduction.
Of course, of course, of course.
Of course, of course, of course. Like honestly though.
I feel like they probably got drunk and were like, and got on a lifeboat.
The 2-year-old too?
Well, she's just along for the ride. She doesn't have a choice.
Yeah. It was
But
probably
maybe.
like all
I
of
don't
the
know.
above. I feel like it was poison. I think it's poisoning.
Ooh,
I don't know. I don't know. The idea that the hatch cover was blown off by alcohol vapors was possibly the most likely one. The crew then abandoned the ship out of fear of a fire, but the hatch cover was firmly in place, so there was no logical explanation still.
and I feel like, why would you abandon a ship that has all your supplies, everything you need to go on a lifeboat in the middle of the ocean where you're most likely going to die
Well, they
because
thought
you're
that,
afraid there might be a fire? Like, I feel like you'd wait till there actually was a fire and then go.
well,
You know what I mean?
something, I'll explain it. It's one of the theories from this lady. I think it's actually pretty cool. Documentarian Anne McGregor set out to learn more about the history of the now famous ghost ship in 2002. She said, quote, there are obvious limitations for historic cases, but using the latest technology, you can come to a different conclusion, unquote. So it's cool because she's trying to dive into this a bit more, but she's
Yeah.
using our modern day technology with
Yeah.
her knowledge of science and chemistry to try and figure this out.
Very cool.
It is very cool. So, McGregor, who visited the captain's birthplace of Marion, Massachusetts, and spoke with the relatives of Arthur Briggs. We thought there were no descendants. This was a fucking like surprise, bitches. They had a 7-year-old son and they had left him behind so that he could go to school.
Oh, poor little
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. But visiting these people, talking to these ancestors, really gave no definitive conclusion as to anything.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't know anything.
Well, you don't know. McGregor discovered that the skipper was well known and regarded in the shipping community. And I think skipper is captain. Is that another word for captain or for ship?
I thought Skipper was like the captain's like first man or whatever.
Oh, okay. Well, that also makes sense in this instance because McGregor said that it didn't seem because he was so popular and well known that he would do anything irrational.
Gotcha.
So if there was something that's gonna like freak you out, they're not gonna do something haphazard and
Like get
crazy.
on a ship when all your other stuff
Yeah,
is on. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. According to Smithsonian Magazine, McGregor sought the assistance of Phil Richardson, a physical oceanographer at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts.
That's a
Beautiful.
mouthful. That's a
That was a
mouthful.
mouthful. The two of them pieced together the ghost ship's drift, so their course, and continued that Briggs's chronometer, which is used to determine a vessel's position at sea, had actually been malfunctioning. The Mary Celeste was 120 miles west of its intended course and completely lost.
Oh, okay.
As a result, the captain anticipated they would see land 3 days sooner than they actually had. Additionally, McGregor examined Flood's notes, so that inspector again, and concluded that up until roughly 5 days before Briggs's last log, everything had been going according to plan during their voyage. Crucially, the logs kept by Briggs and the notes made by Flood indicated that the ship had veered off course the day before it arrived in the Azores. Briggs was now heading straight north to Santa Maria Island. The crew might have been looking for shelter from the bad weather at that time, so maybe they just wanted to get off their ship. But I
Like,
feel like you would anchor it,
yeah, and why would you,
go into the open water in
yeah,
bad
in a little
weather
bitty ship,
just for shelter.
possibility of maybe shelter. I mean, I guess if the waves were really high and your ship was really rocking and you were afraid that it was going to tip over, but then if that's the case, you wouldn't get in a small little boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if because, like I said, because the water, that some water had gotten in. So I don't know if maybe that scared them.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I feel like that's a real like both the fire expo like afraid that there might be a fire and then afraid that it might be taking on water. Like those would be some really skittish seamen if they were running away
Yeah.
from like possibility of things. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy to me.
I feel like Briggs's decision making might have been compromised, though. His wife and daughter were on board.
Yeah, but it just seems to me like that would be the more dangerous of the options to
Yeah,
leave the ship when nothing was wrong with the original ship.
I guess so. I don't know. Maybe the daughter was scared and made them get off. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, was Briggs's decision to abandon ship justified? McGregor reasoned that she might be able to explain why Briggs, his family, and the crew abandoned ship if she could pinpoint the exact location. Richardson was given instructions by McGregor to work backward and create a path between these 2 points of where they supposedly went missing versus where they were found. Richardson stated that he would want information from McGregor's discovery of the International Comprehensive Ocean Atmosphere Data Set, which,
Mhm.
uh-huh, which is a database that houses worldwide marine data from 1784 to 2007.
Oh my gosh.
How do you get shit like that from 1784?
That's insane.
That's wild. And it is used to study climate change. That's still
Okay.
freaking nuts.
Yeah, that is crazy.
How? How? This data includes water temperatures, wind directions, and speeds at the time, which is some crazy shit. The fact that you can do
Yeah,
that,
like yeah, you're right. How did they get that from back in 17 something? That's crazy.
right? Because they definitely weren't. I mean, I would like to think that they weren't doing shit like that back then, but maybe they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
Like
weird.
taking samples, that just seems weird. In order to ascertain if the Mary Celeste might have drifted from its recorded location on November 25th to where the Digratia crew reportedly found her on December 5th, McGregor, her yachtsman husband Scott, and Richardson examined the data. They came to the conclusion that it was possible, even in the absence of a crew, that it just sailed itself
Yeah, I
because
mean, I guess it's
of,
kind of like I don't know. I was gonna say like a car, but a car would eventually stop. But I mean, you're on water, so it's constantly kind of like pushing you, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, based off of wind direction, if they
Yeah.
have that stuff, that information available to them, and the
Yeah.
water temperatures indicates how the water is moving, I would assume.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm
So,
wrong. They never found the crew, right?
no,
Okay.
not that I know of. No,
Okay.
that's part of the mystery.
Yeah, I
On
guess if they found the crew, then you wouldn't be talking about what actually happened because we would know. So that was a dumb question. Yeah.
On the other hand, McGregor also learned that the ship had previously transported a quantity of coal, like the hard, lumpy black coal.
Okay.
Any water that got into the ship's lower decks had nowhere to go since the pumps could have been clogged by coal dust and debris from a recent overhaul.
And there was that broken pump that you said to
Yeah,
remember.
the disassembled pump. Yep.
So this is probably where you're going with this too, but maybe they did have a lot more water and it eventually left after they left, like eventually like drained.
Yeah, because there wasn't that much weight on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Huh. Briggs might have concluded at that point, because the ship had veered off the course, that the crew's only chance was to give up and try to salvage themselves by leaving the ship and making to the closest land, which was Santa Maria Island. It's possible that at that point their lifeboat capsized, drowning all 10 of them.
That's so sad.
So sad. Although McGregor's idea is by no means proven or even widely accepted, it does at least agree with the facts in a manner that other explanations do not. Take
Yeah.
the disassembled pump, for instance.
Yeah. It fits, I think, with all the different evidence that they have.
Yeah, and she actually has done her research and is working towards a solution about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
An explosion could certainly be the key to the destiny of Captain Briggs, his family, and the crew, according to an experiment carried out by a scientist at UCL for a Channel 5 documentary. A model of the Mary Celeste's hold was constructed by Dr. Andrea Sella of UCL Chemistry. He played out an explosion from alcohol seeping out of the ship's cargo using butane gas. And remember what I said. The other thing to remember, that 9 of the alcohol barrels were empty.
But if there was an explosion, wouldn't there be proof of that?
I get to that.
Oh, okay.
So he basically used paper cubes instead of wooden barrels for this method of his experiment. So when the gas was lit, a massive explosion occurred, shooting a ball of flame upward. And without a doubt, you would think that this replica model of their hold would be broken or the paper cubes would have burnt or turned black. And none of these things happened. Dr. Sella said, what we created was a pressure wave type of explosion. There was a spectacular wave of flame, but behind it was relatively cool air. No soot was left behind, and there was no burning or scorching.
Interesting. Now, I could see that if a huge ball of fire came up from the bottom, where you'd be like, oh shit, we gotta go. Things are on
Yeah,
fire. Yeah.
absolutely, right? You're not even going to think about it.
Yeah. And it's not like you're gonna go check, like, oh, there's a huge ball of flame. Let me just go make sure things are on fire.
Yeah,
Like, you're obviously gonna think they're on fire.
yeah, you're just going to like do and go,
Yeah.
and that's that, right?
And you'd be going in a hurry, so you wouldn't be grabbing things.
Yep, yep.
Interesting.
hmm He continues stating, given all the facts we have, this replicates conditions on board the Mary Celeste. The explosion would have been enough to blow open the hatches and would have been completely terrifying for everybody on board.
Yeah.
Unquote.
Yeah, I think it would be.
Yeah. A spark from two loose barrels rubbing against one another, or a negligent crew member opening a hatch with a pipe in his mouth to ventilate the hold during this journey from New York to Italy, could have produced this type of explosion. Because, like I said, 300 gallons of alcohol had leaked,
Yeah.
which is more than enough to
And the
cause a scary
fact,
explosion.
well, and the fact that there wasn't alcohol left,
Yeah,
which means it burnt up if it leaked.
yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Oh man, now I don't know which theory I like better.
You don't have an idea?
I like both those theories.
Yeah. I
Mm.
personally think it's the alcohol leaking. This spike caused it, this explosion, and they left as quickly as they could. Hence why all those papers were just scattered. He was probably just trying to grab what he could
Yeah.
before leaving.
Because I feel like if it was taking on water, that's a slower thing where you can probably grab a couple things before you go.
Yeah,
And how would it drain? You
yeah,
know? Yeah. I
exactly.
think the fire one's probably more likely.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. So that's the mystery of the Mary Celeste.
Oh,
Yeah,
really interesting. Yeah. That was a cool one, Jess. Sad for the people that
thanks.
died, but interesting story.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah.
Really cool that he still had a son though.
Yeah. 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 That is cool.
All right.
Got your dad jokes out for us?
I do. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Why is the beach always wet?
I don't know why.
Because of the seaweed.
What?
I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
It's stupid. Stupid joke. I had planned to be a banker, but I lost interest.
Ma,
Ba-ba. What do you call a coffee on a train?
what?
An espresso.
Oh.
Express. Woo. Did you know crocodiles can grow more than 20 feet? But I've never seen any with more than four.
I like that one. That's stupid.
I do too. Oh man, that's awesome. Okay, I'm done.
Well, if you want more of us lovely ladies, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Patreon.
And if you would like to rate and review us, you can do so on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And go listen to One Dry Kiss.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to bringing you two new stories next week. Bye.
Bye.